Olivia Harrison hated public transportation. Everything about it annoyed her. The dull, lifeless faces, the world-weary expressions on the tired, worn-out people. Occasionally, she'd catch a glimpse of hope on a young, pretty face. Someone life hadn't beaten down yet. Still something to be happy about. Well, enjoy it while it lasts. Soon life will hit you, too. Then you'll be just as dull, blurry, hopeless, and broken. In the early morning darkness, lights would appear out of the blackness like from hell itself, and the bus would emerge. Olivia would climb on, trying to squeeze herself into a corner. Thankfully, it wasn't crowded that early. The smells, the stares, the noises, everything irritated her. It felt like her skin had been peeled off and her nerves were exposed to the world. Olivia would pull out a book and try to read, but she couldn't focus. Evenings were worse. The bus was packed, no way to hide in a corner. If it was running late, she'd miss her transfer and have to walk the rest of the way home. And at home, there was Grandma Margaret, waiting to be fed, washed, and talked to, or rather, listened to. And all she ever talked about was how useless Olivia was, how she couldn't survive in this world. Every night was the same monologue. Olivia didn't know how to live, she'd wasted her life, and ruined her grandmother's too. Olivia would listen, clenching her teeth, nodding in fake understanding. Arguing was pointless. If she argued, Grandma would fake a heart attack and demand an ambulance. Olivia would call. All the paramedics knew them by name and face. They'd refuse the $50 Olivia tried to give them for the false call. As they left, they'd whisper in the hallway so Margaret couldn't hear. "Try not to call us so often." Olivia wished she didn't have to. But every night, Margaret was dying. If she didn't call, Grandma would scream, "Help me," and bang on the neighbors' doors, and they'd call the police. Better to just endure an hour of insults, wash her, feed her, and once Margaret fell asleep, sit in the kitchen completely drained, blind and deaf to the world, thinking about nothing. Then curl up on her sagging cot and fall into a heavy sleep that felt more like passing out. And in the morning, it was back to the hated bus with the gloomy people and then work, full of pain and suffering in the hospital wards. Olivia forced herself not to dream about change. Why bother adding useless hope to her grief? She was 25 years old. 20 of those years she'd lived with Grandma. Her parents, obsessed with mountains and climbing, had died somewhere out there, in the mountains they loved. Margaret had raised her granddaughter, but dementia had struck hard. Olivia couldn't abandon her. It was hard, unbearable at times, but she managed to coexist with an old woman who remembered nothing and no one. The thought of putting her in a nursing home never even crossed Olivia's mind. Partly because her conscience wouldn't allow it. Partly because without Grandma, there would be only complete, empty loneliness. Margaret didn't remember anyone. Every evening she'd look at Olivia in surprise and ask, "Who are you?" Olivia would explain she was her granddaughter, that she lived there. Margaret would cry tears of joy at having a granddaughter, and then begin her nightly performance with the heart attack. Olivia had no personal life. How could she, with a sick grandmother, work from morning till night, and constant lack of time and money? Worn-out jeans, a faded hoodie that was all she could afford. Work was hell. She was a hospital janitor. She cleaned floors, changed diapers for bedridden patients, fed those who couldn't walk, prevented bedsores. Sometimes she managed to get extra shifts. Occasionally, patients' families would pay her for additional care. But there was never enough money. Margaret got a pension, but where it went was a mystery. Olivia paid the bills, bought groceries, and never asked about Grandma's pension. She thought the 20 years Margaret spent raising her couldn't be measured in money. Besides, Grandma probably didn't even remember her pension or where the money was. Oh well, they'd survive somehow. "Olivia, how many times do I have to call you? Don't you hear me?" "I hear you. What's wrong?" 15 minutes ago, Olivia had fed her. She was about to wash the dishes, but Margaret started yelling that she was starving and her heartless granddaughter was letting her die of hunger. Pasta, meat patties, 2 butter and salami sandwiches all gone in seconds. Margaret ate messily, greedily, dropping crumbs everywhere, smearing butter on the table. Olivia wiped her lips with a napkin, her hands trembling with exhaustion and barely restrained anger. "What's with your face? Are you upset about something?" "No, I'm fine. Just tired." Olivia crumpled the napkin in frustration and threw it in the sink. "Of course you're tired. You can't even stay home with your sick grandmother. You come in the middle of the night again. Where were you roaming?" "I was at work." The cheap pack of cookies disappeared instantly. All that was left was the empty wrapper with a pile of crumbs. Olivia felt crushed. She'd hoped to make them last a couple of days. "You're lying. You're always lying." Olivia didn't answer, just sighed. Then she took Grandma to the bathroom, washing her methodically but gently. Margaret made it clear with every sigh and groan that Olivia was torturing her instead of helping. Finally, Grandma was in bed. Olivia could sit in silence for a moment, not listening, not answering. But no, Margaret needed something again. Grandma, what do you want? I don't want anything from you. Margaret turned to the wall. I gave my life for you, and all you do is wait for me to die. You can't even bring me a glass of water, starving me to death. Olivia went to the kitchen, brought her some water, and stood there holding the glass until Margaret deigned to turn over. She didn't take the glass, just stared at it suspiciously. What is that? There was hysteria in her voice. What did you put in there? Grandma, it's just water. Olivia took a sip from the glass. No sweet tea either? You're just gonna give me bread and water until I die, aren't you? I'll make you some tea now. No, I don't want anything from you. Olivia silently set the glass down on the bedside table and walked out. The kitchen was a disaster. A mountain of dirty dishes, torn linoleum, a table smeared with grease, cups and bowls crusted with old food. It looked like while Olivia was at work, Grandma ate nonstop. The psychiatrist had explained that uncontrollable hunger was a symptom of dementia. Such patients needed to be monitored and limited, otherwise the hysterical old woman would turn into a real monster. Endless nerve-wracking episodes would seem like nothing compared to what could come. She could actually become dangerous. Easy for the doctor to say don't indulge her, set limits. Olivia was terrified to argue, to ignore her, to raise her voice. Grandma would lose it, scream, and throw dishes on the floor. Once, she threw open the window and screamed into the courtyard. Help me! My granddaughter is torturing me, starving me to death. That's right, typical Olivia Harrison, one neighbor muttered. A knock at the door. An old woman from the building stood there holding a loaf of bread. I brought some bread. How could you not feed your grandmother? Have you no shame? Then the kind neighbor with her bread, and Grandma, loudly and in detail for everyone to hear, described the horrors of living with such a monstrous relative. Olivia had less and less strength, and Grandma had less and less mind. Olivia scrubbed the kitchen, though the room hadn't been renovated in 20 years and could never look clean. Cracked plates, cups that used to be part of a set but were now chipped junk with missing handles, forks with bent prongs. There was no hiding the poverty. But Olivia tried not to think about it, because if she let herself, her nerves would give out and the apartment would drown in filth. She still needed to move the table, pull out the folding cot, drag over the mattress. Better to sleep in the kitchen than in the room reeking of Grandma's madness. Barely on her feet, she made her way to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror. Looking back at her was a girl of stunning beauty. The kind of princess little girls dream of being. The kind artists paint in fairy tale illustrations and Disney movies. Olivia herself didn't even realize how beautiful she was. A delicate, slender figure, eyes an unusual malachite green, and a glorious mane of red curls she always twisted into a messy bun to keep out of the way. Exhaustion, chronic sleep deprivation and hunger, the constant stress, none of it could touch that beauty. But for Olivia Harrison, this gift of nature brought no joy. That's not me, she whispered to her reflection, turning away. In her not-so-long life, Olivia Harrison had only cried twice. When she found out her parents died, and when an elderly psychiatrist explained to her that Grandma's condition was untreatable, permanent, and only going to get worse. When her parents died, she hadn't really understood what death was, but Grandma cried so much, it was strange and scary, and Olivia's tears fell too. When Olivia was about 8, someone said to her, "She's such an incredibly beautiful girl." That evening she asked her grandmother, "Am I beautiful?" As she grew up, people stopped calling her cute and started saying breathtakingly beautiful. She didn't care what she looked like. Appearance seemed shallow and stupid. At 16, she dreamed of saving humanity, teaching children in remote villages, or helping the sick in Africa. She read philosophy and her mind was a mess of big goals and ideas. She had no friends because she lived in a world of her own that no one else understood. She could go silent in the middle of a conversation, stand up, and leave without explaining. She was a thing in itself, as her favorite philosopher Kant would say. So much so that it didn't matter what she ate, what she wore, or what she looked like. After graduating high school, Olivia got into university to study philosophy. Margaret was content with her granddaughter. She didn't care that Olivia lived in her own world. The girl was smart, didn't waste money on clothes, wasn't interested in boys. What more could she want? Into Olivia's vague but mostly happy world crashed Grandma's madness. Suddenly, she was alone. Grandma didn't count, facing daily survival and no money. She dropped out of university and took a job at the hospital. Over time, she accepted Grandma's illness, their poverty, even the bone-deep exhaustion that seemed inevitable. Sometimes, especially on holidays, despair would grip her. At the hospital, everyone knew Harrison would cover any holiday shift. After all, spending New Year's or Thanksgiving with bedridden patients wasn't any worse than spending it with Grandma. Actually, it paid better. Holiday shifts came with extra pay. She welcomed the new year standing by the hospital corridor window, looking at her reflection in the glass, feeling an unbearable sadness wash over her. I feel so awful. I don't want to live. Where is this despair coming from? Like I've been cursed, Olivia whispered. Her quiet words and the warped reflection in the window made her feel afraid. But really, what was so surprising? When you've slept on a folding cot for years, endured the abuse of a crazy old woman, welcomed New Year without a tree or champagne, just the moans of suffering patients, it was bound to make you sick inside. Especially when fireworks exploded outside and happy laughter floated up to her window. Everyone was celebrating, and here she was, 25 years old, with no one to love her, no one waiting for her. Grandma suddenly became quiet. No more tantrums, barely getting out of bed. She stopped eating so much, probably because she couldn't hold a spoon anymore. The doctor said, this is it. Dementia had reached the parts of her brain that controlled movement. Soon she'd forget how to eat, then how to breathe. What was Olivia supposed to do? Quit her job to care for her? Then how would she live? Keep working and hire a caregiver? She didn't make enough for that. The soles of her boots were almost completely gone. Soon she'd be running around barefoot. By the time she got to the bus stop, she was soaked and chilled to the bone. It was March, technically spring, but heavy, wet snow kept falling, turning into icy sludge underfoot. Olivia was late for work. She'd washed, changed, and fed Grandma, then ran out the door, but missed the bus. The next one came packed full, and she barely squeezed in. No corner to hide in, no way to withdraw. The smells of sweat, morning sausages, stale alcohol from last night's parties pressed in on her. Someone stepped on her heel. That was it for her boots. They'd last till she got to the hospital. But then what? Olivia jumped off the bus and hurried forward, her shoe sole flapping with every step. At the staff entrance, Nurse Marina was pacing anxiously. Olivia didn't really have friends, but with Marina she had warm, friendly ties. Marina felt sorry for Olivia, who life seemed to have beaten down, and helped her whenever she could, sometimes lending her money. She would often say, "You're a strange one, Olivia. Beautiful and smart, yet you're killing yourself looking after that crazy old lady. With a face like yours, you shouldn't be scrubbing floors for pennies. At least fall in love or something, make life a bit brighter." But today, Marina looked clearly upset. "Great timing to be late. The head nurse is looking for you." "What happened?" "I don't know, but it can't be good. Go." Olivia raced up the stairs, and Marina whispered sadly after her, "With your luck, it's never good news, poor thing." When Nina Peterson, the head nurse, saw Olivia, she looked away. Her kind, round face was filled with regret and confusion. Olivia was surprised. She had never seen Nina so rattled. "Olivia, sweetheart, I hate to tell you this, but you're losing your job. They're cutting staff, and you didn't make the list. It's not fair, really. I couldn't fire Tatiana, she's got 3 little kids, even though she's always out sick and barely does her job. But you're young, you'll find work as a janitor anywhere. I've been so worried, knowing about your grandmother, but what can I do? Now I've upset you, and there's no one to care for the patients either. I'm so sorry, dear. I understand. Don't worry about it. I'll find another job." Olivia walked out of the office. Marina was waiting outside, and judging by her eyes, she'd heard everything. "Don't worry, Olivia. That job isn't worth crying over anyway. But what about your grandma now? Maybe you could put her in a care home? You can't go on like this. You're half dead yourself, with those dark circles under your eyes. Honestly, you look sicker than she does. Marina, you know I can't afford a good clinic, and putting Margaret in a state facility is like throwing her in the trash. Yeah, better to throw yourself in the trash at 25. Marina rolled her shoulders irritably. "Forget I said anything. You never listen anyway. And you're right, you don't have the money. Olivia, try to find a different job. A janitor's pay can't even feed you, let alone take care of a sick grandmother. All your money goes on medicine. How do you even survive?" "Sure, there are lines of people just waiting to hire me. Anyway, now I'm unemployed. No need for a caregiver anymore." Back at the apartment, the silence was deafening, pressing against her ears. Not a sound, not a rustle, Grandma rarely got up these days, but Olivia could always hear her. Now, the silence felt dead. She dropped her bags on the floor and ran into the bedroom. Margaret lay there on the bed, peaceful, relaxed, almost smiling. It was over. Olivia fell to her knees by the bed, stroking her grandmother's hand and face, sobbing, whispering all the words she never got to say while she was alive. A long time passed before Olivia realized she needed to call someone. Everything after that was a blur. Doctors, police, paramedics. A funeral director fussed around, shoving catalogs of coffins and crosses in her face. Eventually, everyone left, and they took Grandma away. The apartment was silent, lifeless. Olivia didn't know what to do with herself. Maybe she was still in shock. She couldn't even cry. Sleeping was out of the question, though dawn was breaking outside. She sat staring blankly at the worn-out kitchen table. No regret, no despair, just one thought: she had no money for a funeral. She had a bit, just enough for a cheap coffin, but beyond that there was nothing. No one to call, no one to lean on. She knew Marina couldn't really help her, but she didn't have the strength to sit alone in that dead apartment. She just needed to talk to someone, cry, ask for advice. Marina gathered up all her money and borrowed some more. Margaret was buried simply, but with dignity. Now Olivia had to figure out what to do with her life. It was unbearable to go back to the apartment where Grandma no longer was. The poverty, always there, felt even harsher now. She started spending more time at Marina's place. And the more she stayed, the more she realized she needed to change her life. Olivia, you're a hard worker, right? There's this job with room and board and really good pay. Where do they feed you, house you, and tuck you in at night? And most importantly, where are they waiting just for me? No one's waiting just for you, but you could try. Why are you always so sarcastic? Do you need money or not? I do. The job is tough, sure, but easier than hauling bedpans, and the pay is like what our head doctor makes. Who pays that kind of money? What's the catch? Well, technically you could get that money for nothing, but I'm not setting you up to be someone's mistress. My aunt, well, not really an aunt, some distant relative of my mom's moved here from the suburbs 10 years ago and got a job as a maid for some rich businessman. Now her daughter just had twins, so she's going back to help with the babies, and they need a new maid. Are you crazy? Me, a maid? Why not? You've been scrubbing hospital floors for years. Cleaning a fancy house is too much for you? They might not hire you, but my aunt can put in a good word. She's desperate to go help with her grandkids. Olivia, I can see how miserable you are in that apartment. This could solve your problem. That night, Olivia lay curled up on her cot, unable to sleep, thinking about Marina's offer. Maybe she should try. She needed money so badly. There were still debts to pay from Grandma's funeral. Then again, who would hire some random girl off the street? But on the other hand, if they said no, they said no. She had nothing to lose. More than anything, she just wanted to lie there, not move, not care about anything. Though really, there was nothing left to care about except her own life. Angry at herself for turning her life into endless misery and struggle, she called Marina in the morning. I'll try. Call your aunt. Places like that she'd only seen in TV shows about the miserable lives of the rich. Granted, she hadn't watched TV in 5 years, it burned out long ago, but she remembered those ultra-rich people, always tortured by lack of love, trusting no one, cursing their fates, longing for their carefree poor youth. The door was opened by a short, plump woman in an apron. Come in. I'm Mary Thompson. Igor Williams will be here soon. She gave Olivia a quick, assessing look. Not much of a maid, young and pretty. Probably never scrubbed a toilet in her life. Well, it's not my decision, but I'll tell him what I think. Men don't know anything about running a house. Someone has to guide them. Mary Thompson had worked with the previous maid for 10 years. That woman kept everything spotless. But this one? Just a girl. Over the years, Mary had forgotten she was just the cook. She considered herself part of the family, called Igor Williams simply Igor, and spoke to him informally. She shared his troubles as if they were her own, and he appreciated his faithful Aunt Mary, taking her life advice with amused kindness. Seeing Olivia here made Mary uneasy. It wasn't right for such a beautiful girl to work in the home of a successful, young, single man. People would gossip. When Olivia had been getting ready for the interview, Marina looked her over critically and sighed. You can't go looking like this. You look like a beggar who thinks $3 is a fortune. Who's going to believe you actually want to work hard and not just steal something and run off? It should be simple, but at least not pathetic. Let me find you something. Don't argue. I know you don't care how you look, but not everyone is so forgiving. First impressions matter, you've heard that, right? Old wisdom. And old wisdom is usually true. Just this once, do as I say. Now Olivia was sitting on a couch in the fancy living room, wearing classic jeans and a brand new plaid shirt. Marina hadn't managed to convince her to let her hair down, but the usual messy bun had been replaced by a curly ponytail. Compared to taking care of Grandma and scrubbing the hospital, this huge apartment didn't scare her. What was there to clean? It already sparkled. She just wondered what kind of people lived here and how they'd treat her, if they even hired her at all. She was so nervous she didn't notice the man standing in the doorway at first. Goosebumps ran down her arms and her head spun. For a second she thought she might be coming down with something. Then she saw his unwavering, piercing gaze. It frightened her. Olivia wasn't used to men looking at her like that. He walked into the room. Gray suit matching his gray eyes, short hair sprinkled with silver. "Hello, you must be Olivia?" His voice was low and calm, his eyes steady, and he even managed a small smile. "Aunt Mary, tell her what she needs to do and show her where she'll be staying." Then he turned and left. What was that supposed to mean? Strange man. But life was full of strange things. He was tired of always having to prove he was the best. Tired of business battles and endless victories. Because if you weren't going to win, there was no point in fighting at all. Tired of betrayals by friends and colleagues who thought, he's made enough money for a lifetime. Time to share. If he doesn't want to, we'll just take it. He won't go broke, he'll make more anyway. But the biggest betrayal of all was his wife's death. How could she leave him like that? She knew he couldn't live without her, couldn't even breathe. Nothing made sense without her. The successful business, the deals won, the accounts, the houses, the cars, none of it mattered. She knew that, yet she left anyway. Blaming someone for dying was a straight road to a psychiatrist's office. He knew that, but he couldn't help it. Every night he would rage at her memory, telling her how wrong she was to go. Igor buried himself in work so he wouldn't howl with grief. He worked himself to the bone, to the point of numbness, drowning out the pain. Secured federal contracts, beat out competitors easily. Other entrepreneurs fought for the chance to work with his company. He had learned to live with the grief. At least he didn't scream at night anymore. He tried not to get attached to anyone. He couldn't survive another loss. It would hurt too much. Mary Thompson comforted him as best she could. "Igor, you have to stop grieving. Nothing can bring her back. But you still have to live. At least try." He had tried. A very young, very beautiful girl named Nadia, with smoky blue eyes and what one of Igor's friends called genius-level legs. Igor even thought about marrying her, but those smoky eyes only looked at him with interest for a year. Then she got bored. She wanted his big money to bring her big joys, but he had no energy left to give. Nadia didn't even pretend to care about building a life together. No affection, no concern. Why bother? There was a cook and a maid to do everything. A million little things piled up into a giant cloud of indifference that even Nadia's angelic beauty couldn't dispel. Eventually, she left him for some long-haired, rugged rocker from a famous band. Igor didn't care. Nothing stirred inside him. In fact, he felt relief. Let her go. He knew he could never love anyone but his wife. And now here was this red-haired girl he hadn't even spoken to, and his heart tightened painfully. Damn it, what terrible timing. He needed a maid, and here he was, like some teenage boy, spying from the second floor not to see how she cleaned, but just to watch her move, to see her curls shining in the sunlight. Falling in love was the last thing he needed right now. Olivia liked it there. The work was hard, but compared to the hospital and Grandma, it was nothing. She noticed Mary Thompson watching her, checking if she was doing everything right. But Olivia didn't mind. She could see Mary cared about Igor deeply. Mary was indeed watching her, worried at first, but Olivia surprised her. She worked thoroughly and quickly, never shying away from dirty tasks. Mary hadn't expected a girl so young to be unafraid of real work. She didn't even tell Igor her initial doubts. This girl seemed right for the house. She wondered what must have happened in her life to bring her here. No degree. But why? "Olivia, take a break. Come have some tea. I baked some buns." Over tea and buns, Mary learned Olivia's whole story, even though Olivia never opened up to anyone. Not even Marina knew this much. Of course, Aunt Mary told Igor the heartbreaking story. Not that he needed it to notice her. He couldn't take his eyes off Olivia as it was. Now he felt pity too, and a fierce desire to protect her. He tried to stop himself. "You're too old for her. She doesn't even see you. Could it be love? Don't torture yourself. She clearly isn't after your money. And as for your charm, well, Igor had never been confident about that. With Nadia, all anyone had ever cared about was his bank account. It was a strange house. Too big, but so cozy and clean. After her life in that shabby little apartment, everything felt unreal to Olivia. So this is how people really live. Dusting sturdy, beautiful furniture, polishing panoramic windows that were already spotless. It wasn't work, it was pure pleasure. She had her own room with a real bed, not a fold-out cot in the kitchen. Lunches with Aunt Mary, breakfasts and dinners at the same table as Igor Williams. No one watching what Grandma hadn't finished eating. Igor Williams made Olivia feel uneasy. He was so quiet, never giving instructions or complaints. Just 2 or 3 words a day. But his eyes. That intense, piercing gaze. If it weren't for that, she'd think he didn't notice her at all. But his eyes unsettled her, as if he was watching and judging her every move. It made her uncomfortable. She tried to stay out of his way, and if they crossed paths, she pretended to be terribly busy. Still, she often wondered why he always looked so gloomy. He could at least say a few polite words. But maybe he thought it wasn't appropriate to chat with the help. Fine by her. She didn't really care. Marina called. "How's it going, Olivia?" "Good. You wouldn't believe it, for the first time in my life, it's good. The vacuum cleans the floors, the dishwasher washes the dishes, and I just go around dusting. I've become friends with Aunt Mary. She keeps feeding me buns." Igor Williams. He's strange. He talks to Aunt Mary like she's family, but just looks at me with those eyes. No complaints, just quiet. "Marina, I'm getting paid tomorrow. I'll pay you back everything I owe. No rush, buy yourself something nice. You're not working in an ordinary house anymore. What about your boss? Is he interesting?" "Very. He's like a mystery. Not from this world, honestly. Like he's forced to live here and just puts up with it. I think life's been even harder on him than it has on me. And he has no one to talk to except Aunt Mary. He seems so lonely, so lost." "Hey, girl, don't tell me you're falling for him. Are you kidding? I'm too scared to even look at him." Mary Thompson reheated dinner for the 3rd time, but Igor still hadn't come home. She was worried. He hadn't even called. "Olivia, I feel a little dizzy. I'm going to bed. If Igor comes back and you're still up, put his dinner in the fridge, okay?" "Of course." Olivia sat a while longer, then cleaned everything up and went to bed. It wasn't her business where her boss spent his nights. But she felt uneasy. This had never happened before. Half asleep, she kept listening for him to come home. But the house stayed silent. She must have dozed off, because suddenly her grandmother was there, sitting on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair and speaking softly. "My little girl, everything will be all right now. Just don't push people away. People are good, believe me, I can see better from here. That man downstairs, he's thinking about you. Go to him. I won't come back for a while. You can handle things without me." Olivia sat up in bed. The dream felt so real she could still feel the warmth of her grandmother's hand. Who was Grandma sending her to? Who was downstairs? She walked out of her room and leaned on the stair railing. Down in the living room, on the floor near the low coffee table, sat Igor Williams. A glass of whiskey stood in front of him as he stared blankly at the flickering lights of the decorative fireplace. Sensing her gaze, he looked up at her and held her eyes for a long time before speaking. "Olivia, come down here and sit with me, please." His voice and his eyes were filled with sadness. He didn't look like a powerful, successful man. He looked like someone life had beaten down. It was a strange night, a night of unexpected confessions. Even the strong and successful need someone to listen, to support them, even if they don't agree, just to say, "You couldn't have done it any other way. You did the right thing." He told her about a young, promising manager he'd hired. Igor had met him at a student conference, been impressed by his project, and brought him into his company. For a few years, the kid worked hard, but then decided career growth was too slow. If he sold Igor's project to a competitor, he'd make a lot of money fast. Either Igor would never find out who betrayed him, or the competitor would hire him. At the presentation, Igor watched in shock as his competitor unveiled the project his team had worked on for 6 months. Igor lost the tender, and the competitor gave him a condescending pat on the shoulder, expressing fake sympathy. Why did men always do that hard slap on the shoulder? First, it hurt, and second, it was humiliating when someone barely knew you but acted like an old buddy in front of everyone. They weren't friends. Igor barely knew the man. The young and promising trader was fired, but Igor lost the contract, and another piece of his faith in loyalty and decency fell away. Listening to him, Olivia realized there were many such pieces missing, but somehow, he still had some faith left. She felt sorry for him. No one had ever betrayed her, but she could feel his pain. They talked almost until morning. When Olivia went back to her room, she lay awake for a long time, listening to Igor pacing downstairs, sighing heavily. Her employer wasn't some alien after all. He was just a wounded, lonely man. After that strange night, Olivia stopped avoiding him. Their dinners together turned into long evening conversations. Mary Thompson noticed how much Igor enjoyed spending time with Olivia. And why not, she was a good girl. But her heart ached for him. Olivia was so young and beautiful. What if he fell for her, only for her to turn out like Nadia? He needed an older, simpler woman, someone who wouldn't hurt him. But no, he always fell for the pretty ones. One evening, Igor came home looking restless. During dinner, he barely spoke, sneaking glances at Olivia with a shy little smile playing on his lips. It was like he wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how. Under his gaze, Olivia felt uneasy. What was this about? She regretted getting so close to Igor Williams. That was it from now on, just employer and maid. She finished her food quickly, said goodnight, and went to her room. Half an hour later, Igor knocked on her door and asked her to come down to the living room. She went down, her body language saying clearly she wasn't in the mood for deep conversations. If he had complaints or instructions, she was listening. Olivia, what's wrong? Why did you leave so abruptly? Everything's fine, Mr. Williams. Did you need something? Olivia, could you please sit down? It's hard enough for me to ask this favor, and you standing there like that makes me feel like a tyrant boss keeping his poor maid from arrest. She couldn't help but chuckle. He'd nailed exactly what her stance and glare were meant to say. She sat. The annoyance melted away. Now she was curious. What could make this strong, confident man look so embarrassed and unsure? For 5 years, negotiations had been underway with foreign investors looking to put money into the region. Dozens of meetings, the best projects chosen, the biggest and most successful companies brought on board. The money at stake was huge, so no one was surprised that the investors were picky and meticulous. Finally, things had moved forward, and in 3 days, the delegation was flying in to sign the contracts. The governor and heads of the top companies, including Igor Williams' conglomerate, would be signing. As usual, Max Novak, Igor's deputy, partner, and close friend, burst into his office without knocking. Igor, remember when these investors first showed interest in us? They analyzed us like bugs under a microscope. Dug into everything, the company, our personal lives, everything. Made notes in our files. Which makes sense, they didn't know us and wanted to be sure we were trustworthy. Well, here's the thing. Igor, I don't want to panic you for no reason, but your file has a big fat plus sign in the marital status section. Sorry, but that was back before your wife passed. Max, what's your point? My point is, their top boss is obsessed with family values. He thinks a man without a family isn't reliable, has no real sense of responsibility. He believes such a man shouldn't be trusted with a company or money. So he's going to be at the signing reception, sitting there all warm and fuzzy seeing everyone with their wives. And then in walks lonely Igor Williams, no wife by his side. He can't take your company away, but he could definitely refuse to sign. You're joking. 5 years of negotiations down the drain just because I'm not married? Maybe I'm exaggerating, but do you really want to test it? You can't get married in 3 days, but you can't show up alone either. You need a wife with you, and not just anyone, but the wife of a CEO. And where exactly am I supposed to get one? Remember that blue-eyed beauty with the great legs? She's gone, took those legs with her. No, that's not an option. But I'm sure it wouldn't be hard. Plenty of women would jump at the chance to stand next to you for a night. I'm not doing that. So, you do have an idea? I do. But she doesn't know about it yet. All day, Igor tried to figure out how to politely ask Olivia to pretend to be his wife. How to explain it so she wouldn't just laugh in his face or storm off. But everything sounded ridiculous. Olivia, would you be my wife for an evening? Or, Olivia, you don't know me well, but I need your help. I need a wife. Nothing sounded right. Oh well, he'd just start talking and figure it out. Except it didn't go that way. Just say it already. You're scaring me. I feel like running away. Olivia, I need you to pretend to be my wife. There. He'd said it. What an idiot. He'd chosen the dumbest way possible. Now he had to try to explain. Olivia burst out laughing. It was so unexpected. She tried to stop herself. It was rude to laugh right in his bewildered face, but she couldn't help it. The situation was just too absurd. When she finally stopped laughing, she said, still apologizing, I'm sorry, really, but I don't understand. What exactly are you asking me to do? So Igor told her about the contract, the strange obsession of the foreign boss, Max's concerns, and asked her to come to the reception and pretend to be his devoted, loving wife. We need to look like a strong, happy couple. I'd love to help, but I'm afraid having someone like me by your side will just raise suspicions. Turn around, look at us. How could anyone believe we're a couple? I'd ruin your reputation immediately. What do you mean? You're young, beautiful, smart. I don't even know how to sit or stand properly at something like that. I'd embarrass you. How do you picture me next to the governor? Just look at me. It's obvious I don't move in circles with officials and foreign investors. I wouldn't even know how to dress for such an event. My wardrobe definitely isn't made for receptions. That's not a problem. Tomorrow my assistant Lena will come by. She'll take a look, pick out a dress, and bring in a stylist and makeup artist or whoever else is needed. It would be easier to just take this Lena with you. Then you wouldn't need to train anyone. I can't. Lena would be perfect, but she's married, and her husband is Max, the same Max who explained today why I need a wife with me. They'll both be at the reception. If you don't help me, I'm screwed. Don't worry about saying or doing something wrong. I'll be right there to guide you. Besides, the wife of a CEO can act a little odd. No one will be surprised. Not everyone has a perfect wife like Max does. So, do we have a deal? No, this is a very bad idea. I'll send Lena anyway. All night, Olivia tossed and turned. She'd refused him, but deep down she knew she'd already agreed. She hadn't said it out loud yet, but part of her wanted to go to a real reception, even if it was as a fake wife. Her life had never had moments like that, and it probably never would again. She'd always believed looks didn't matter, but now she suddenly wanted to be Cinderella at the ball. The next day, Lena arrived. Wow. Olivia could barely breathe from how impressive she was. A flawless woman of style in a sleek office suit. She swept into the house like a whirlwind, turned Olivia this way and that, placed her in front of the mirror, turned her towards the light, and gave her verdict. Got it. With features like this, there's barely anything to do. You, Olivia, are a rare find. Where did Igor dig you up? I came on my own, Olivia mumbled. Don't take offense, it's just. Igor's always been surrounded by beautiful but standard women. When he asked me to help you, I was shocked. His girlfriends always thought they knew everything and didn't need advice. They believed it wasn't shameful to be clueless, but it was disgraceful not to know the top designers. They thought that if a man was rich, he should spend money on them, while they didn't offer him any warmth or love in return. But men like my husband and Igor, who work nonstop and build their lives from scratch, what they crave most is warmth. Igor wouldn't have been so successful if it weren't for his wife. Everything he did for her. Oh, I'm getting emotional. Olivia, today a wonderful girl named Nina will come. She's a stylist. She'll try some things out, see what works. Tomorrow I'll bring the dress. Is there anything you'd like? Lena, don't ask me. I have no clue about any of this. I've never even owned an evening dress. Then I'll choose. Something fitted your figure allows it elegant but not too revealing. After all, it's a reception with the governor, not a holiday office party. See you tomorrow. Nina arrived with her assistant, or maybe it was an assistant, Olivia couldn't tell. Some androgynous, long-haired person in a purple beret and a lemon-yellow blazer covered in lace and rhinestones. They twirled Olivia around, chatted in their own language, either arguing or brainstorming how best to style her. Mary Thompson peeked from the kitchen, pursing her lips in disapproval. What were they doing to that girl? Oh, Igor, he was smart and grown, but didn't he see that Olivia didn't belong in this glittering, fake world? He'd bring her to the rich and powerful, and then she'd have to go back to her mops and rags. What if, like Nadia, she decided her youth and beauty were valuable commodities to be sold? No, that wasn't Olivia. A few hours before the reception, Olivia stood in front of the mirror. Looking back at her was a red-haired woman with long malachite eyes, a delicate figure in a flowing light gray dress. Elegant, stunning, incredible, she looked like a Hollywood star or a top model. She loved what she saw. It was a new, unfamiliar, and deeply important feeling. For once, when she thought, that's not me, it wasn't with sadness or despair, but with wonder. Igor walked in without knocking. He always looked elegant and impressive, but today he looked like a young George Clooney. Olivia, you're a queen. I'm speechless. Mr. Williams, please, no jokes or teasing right now. My brain isn't working. Well, at least remember that you shouldn't call your beloved husband Mr. Williams. We'll blow our cover in the first minute, she realized. At least nod if you understand. Perfect. And by the way, I wasn't joking about the Queen comment. Let's go, it's time. When they walked out arm in arm, Mary Thompson took back all her worries. Igor knew exactly what he was doing. He was going to marry that girl, and she wasn't going anywhere. No woman could resist a man like him. Olivia just didn't know it yet, but there was no turning back. Aunt Mary never got these things wrong. At the restaurant, Olivia was trembling all over, unable to figure out how to step out of the car without catching her dress on her heel. Olivia, relax. These are normal people. No one's going to bite you. The governor is a beast, sure, but he doesn't attack guests. Listen first, you look stunning. Second, forgive me, but you and I are not the main stars of this Vanity Fair. Don't expect everyone to stare at you. The restaurant was stunning. Well, of course it was the governor's reception. Olivia had nothing to compare it to. She'd never been to any restaurant before. The room was filled with famous people, gowns, suits, the glitter of jewelry, camera flashes, journalists asking sharp but respectful questions, sweet champagne burning cold on her lips, and soft orchestra music that made her head spin. The banquet hall sparkled and shimmered, glasses clinked, gentle laughter floated around, and groups of businessmen whispered serious conversations that mingled and intertwined. Their wives gathered in little clusters too, but their topics were different. The contract was signed. Now everyone could just relax. The Williams conglomerate sat at one table, Igor with Olivia, Max with Lena. Olivia couldn't take her eyes off Lena. She had never seen such an incredible woman before. The men stepped away to the bar, and Lena said, "I'm so glad you're in Igor's life now. I was tired of watching him fend off all those socialites. Whenever he brought someone around, he never even introduced us. He knew it wouldn't last. I worry about him. He's a good man but so unhappy. He used to be happy when Tanya, his wife, was alive. Back then, he really lived. With you, he looks like that old Igor again. There's nothing between us. This is just an act. That's what you think. But Igor, I think he's already fallen. Trust me, it's obvious from the outside." Igor invited Olivia to dance. Her head spun from the touch of his hands, the closeness of his eyes. The sparkling hall, the clinking glasses, the chatter and laughter all disappeared. There was only his deep gray gaze, and she couldn't look away. In the car, they kissed. Back at the quiet, dark house, they couldn't keep their hands off each other. Olivia felt swept up in a wild, reckless happiness, even if only for a moment. For a night it was hers. In the morning, Olivia slipped quietly out of the house and went straight to Marina. Her heart was overflowing with so many emotions, she couldn't process them alone. One thing was clear: she couldn't keep working in Igor's house. Scrubbing floors, polishing windows, looking into those impossibly beautiful eyes and making small talk as if nothing had happened that wasn't an option. Marina had been waiting for Olivia to call. She was curious how a governor's reception went, but she never expected Olivia to show up in person, especially this early. Yawning, she opened the door. Olivia walked straight to the kitchen without a word and collapsed onto a chair. "How did it go?" "It went. I don't hear any excitement. Come on, tell me everything." Olivia started telling her about the reception and suddenly burst into bitter sobs. Marina was stunned. What happened? She should comfort her friend, but first she needed to know what was wrong. Olivia, my dear girl, drink some water, calm down. How's your Igor?" "He's silent. Everything's so strange. I don't know what to do, how to act. I don't know how to live anymore." Olivia kept crying. Marina hugged her and stroked her hair. "Just tell me everything, every detail. We'll figure this out together. It's obviously about Igor. You're not crying like this over the governor. But I need details. You're such a worrier. You always turn everything into a tragedy and drown in grief. And let's be honest, you're clueless when it comes to love. I'm no expert either, but I've got some experience. We'll figure out what's going on between you two." Olivia told her the whole strange story with Igor, watching Marina's face, wondering if it sounded as crazy from the outside. Marina listened, amazed that shy, quiet Olivia had ended up in such a situation, but she didn't see anything strange in it. People always complicated things. It was obvious Igor liked her. Why wouldn't he? She was smart and beautiful. It was just sad that instead of a long, beautiful love story, it turned into a farce with a fake wife. "Olivia, what's so strange about a man and woman being drawn to each other? Don't you like him? Or do you just think you're out of his league? Listen, sweetheart, you'll never marry anyone else now. You'll compare them all to Igor, and no one will measure up. Men like him don't come around twice. Why do you think you're not good enough for him? From his actions, he doesn't think that. You're already in love with him. And if not, you're about to be. Women fall for men like him instantly. He's a good man, and you'd be happy with him. If one's a prince and the other a pauper, how could either be happy? You should have seen the people around him last night. They're like gods. Sure, he dressed me up like a doll and introduced me as his wife. But none of them will ever truly talk to me. Have you even considered that you matter to him? Why these insecurities? Has it never crossed your mind that someone could love you? Not someone else you. He introduced you as his wife. Maybe that's a hint? Like, get used to it, darling. Oh God, Marina, what are you talking about? I don't know what to do, how to live. Go back to Igor's house. Figure it out there. You can always leave later. But honestly, I don't think you want to leave. She was right. Olivia didn't want to leave at all. But how could she go back and look at Igor? She would always be waiting for some word from him. And he would stay silent, walking past her with those incredible dark gray eyes that looked right through her. And her heart would stop from love and sorrow. There was a way out. She could go back to her grandmother's apartment and look for a janitor job again. She couldn't even ask Igor to pay her for the days she'd already worked. Well, technically she could, but not in this situation. She just couldn't imagine going back and looking him in the eyes. When Igor didn't see Olivia in the morning, he was surprised, but not worried. Who knows, maybe she'd gone somewhere. But by evening, worry crept in. Aunt Mary was setting the dinner table, slamming plates and forks down so hard that Igor flinched. Aunt Mary, don't just stand there glaring. If you know something, say it. Oh, I'll say it. You're grown, smart, you run your entire company with an iron fist, but you can't figure out your own life. You liked our Olivia, right? Then why didn't you act like a normal man? You should have courted her, talked to her, taken her to the movies. But what did you do? You dressed her up, called her your wife, and dragged her off to show her to your rich friends. And now what? Is she supposed to come back here and scrub floors again? She would have come back. She's a good girl, not afraid of work. But she's fallen in love with you. Before, it was simple you were the boss, she was the maid. Maybe she looked at you, but she knew her place. And you, so clever, waved your hand, spun her head around, and then shoved her back in her corner. Here's your place. Aunt Mary, what are you saying? I love her. From the first moment I saw her, sitting there on the couch, pale, skinny, so sad. That was it for me. I called her my wife so everyone would know she was taken. There will never be another wife. Igor, did you ever tell her any of that? Aunt Mary, why would I? Isn't it obvious? That's what I'm saying. You're smart, but such a fool. Go find your princess. Bring her back. But don't forget to tell her you're not hiring her as a maid. Where do I even find her? You're definitely in love. Your brain's gone soft. Aunt Mary left the room and came back with a piece of paper. You hired her, didn't you? Here's a copy of her paperwork with her address. Where else would she be? Olivia hadn't been to her grandmother's apartment in so long. She remembered how shabby it was, how much effort it took just to make it feel like someone lived there. Over the years, she'd gotten used to the poverty, the cracked dishes, torn linoleum, chipped doors, peeling wallpaper. It all became normal, livable, somehow. But after living in Igor's house, the apartment horrified her. Had she really spent her whole life here? How could anyone live like this? It wasn't just the poverty, it was the hopelessness that seeped from every wall. This place would never let her go. It would convince her this was all life had to offer. It would swallow her whole. If she didn't escape, she'd die here. But Olivia was different now. The swamp of self-sacrifice had dried up. There was a way out. She would get a job, throw out all the junk, slowly fix the place up. Grandma, I'm sorry, but your madness still lives in these walls. I need to get rid of it. You wouldn't mind, right? In her dream, Grandma didn't mind. She stood beside Olivia, nodding with approval. And Igor was there too, impossibly handsome, somehow different but still him. Her head spun with happiness. He had come for her. He loved her. His love erased all the misery of her old life. Every second of this new life was filled with meaning. He whispered something in her ear. Her head spun faster. She even heard ringing. She felt so good, so overwhelmed with happiness. The ringing grew louder and louder. But Olivia tried to push it away. She was afraid to open her eyes. This was just a dream. If she opened her eyes, it would all be gone. Then the ringing turned into banging. What is it? Why can't you leave me to my dream? Just let me finish it. This can't be happening. Olivia opened her eyes. Someone was pounding on the door, ringing the bell nonstop. The dream clung to her, her heart still aching with its sweetness. On shaky legs, she made it to the door and opened it. Igor. He burst into her tiny apartment, pulled her into his arms, kissed her, whispered gentle words. Was this still the dream? Igor, how did you find me here? I'm looking for my runaway bride. Or rather, my wife. Your wife? Igor, did you forget? You don't have a wife. I can't be her. It was easy to parade me around as your wife, but it'll be impossible to explain who I am, where I came from, how I lived. You'll become a laughingstock. You can't just pick up a pauper and marry her. Your world will never accept me. What do you know about my world? Max and I, we were just two broke engineers, knocking on every door with our ideas. They kicked us out, so we climbed in through the window. We believed so deeply in our genius. Lena believed in us too, and we were both in love with her. She chose Max, and she was right too. I've never seen such loyalty and love again. You know, I actually understand those obsessed foreign investors. If a person is devoted to their family, they're reliable, stable, not capable of betrayal. Do you really think Max and Lena, who spent years living in tiny rentals, feeding their kids cheap instant meals, would judge your status? And if anyone does look down on you, who cares? I need you by my side, and the rest can keep their envy to themselves. Wait, Igor. Why do you need me? Because I love you. Isn't that reason enough? I thought I'd never feel this way again, but when it hit me, I told myself, Igor, don't be an idiot. This is your last chance at love. I tried to impress you. I probably did everything wrong. Olivia, I want to be with you. I want you next to me. I want to call you my wife. At the reception, introducing you as my wife. I felt so proud, but at the same time it broke my heart because it wasn't real. So, is this your unusual way of proposing? Yes. There's no ring, no flowers. I just ran here to get you back. I didn't have time to plan the details. I swear, all of that will come. I'm sorry I forgot how to court someone, how to say the right words, how to propose. I completely lost my head. Thank God for my wise Aunt Mary, she knocked some sense into me. So, tell me, will you marry me? And please, don't start again about different worlds and destinies. I've heard it already, and it didn't convince me. What matters is, do you love me? That's all I need to know. Yes or no? He came so close that all Olivia could see were those overwhelming eyes. He kissed her malachite green eyes, her long fiery curls, not giving her a chance to think. She didn't want to think. In that moment, she realized sharply if Igor wasn't by her side, then she wouldn't exist either. They lived in different worlds, parallel lines that never should have met. Olivia never dreamed of wealth or a high-status fiancé. Igor probably never imagined his bride would live in a shabby apartment. But they met anyway. Fate brought them together? Maybe. It shoved them into each other's paths and now watched from the sidelines. Well, lovebirds, can you handle it? If not, I wash my hands of it. No more help from me. It was like Olivia could feel fate leading her. All the unspoken tenderness, romantic hopes, starry-eyed dreams, it all poured out in that moment. Every drop of love she'd saved up over the years belonged to Igor now, overflowing into endless softness. I love you. I love you so much that you have no choice but to marry me.